Hi all, I wanted to do a recording of the solution for the mock exam question for Chapter 8. You do have the question and the solution posted in Blackboard, but I thought a video walkthrough might be useful both from a standpoint of how to solve the question, but I'm going to throw a few Excel tips in along the way too, for I know some of you struggle with Excel. So, let's, here's the question. Perpetual inventory system shows the following data: inventory, purchase, blah, blah, blah. Part 1, record journal entries for all February transactions, assuming the Beetle Shop uses a FIFO costing assumption. So a couple of key words here. It's perpetual, and as I mentioned in class, and we'll mention, we're not going to do journal entries for periodic. It's perpetual is all you need. And it's FIFO. So what have I got here? One I'm going to label because it'll make Randy's life easy to mark on an exam if I actually put what I'm doing. And I want to record entries for February transactions. So I've got inventory February 1st. There is no entry for inventory in a perpetual. So you don't need to say no entry, but you can if you want. It certainly doesn't hurt. It does show you addressed it. I've got a purchase on Feb 9th. So one thing I did have a couple of students were entering dates in the spreadsheets before and getting really weird answers or weird numbers showing up because it's trying to read a date as a number, and it can be confusing, and there is lots of formats for dates. What I find easiest, unless you need the dates to calculate days or something, is to turn it into a text field. And in Excel, all you need to do is enter the single quotation mark in the first as you start the cell, and that tells Excel this is text. It's not a number, it's not a date for that matter, it just thinks it's text. So then I don't have to worry about format and what date shows up, etc., etc. So on February 9th, I've got 300 units at 760. In a perpetual system, it is perpetually tracking my inventory balance. So every time I have an inventory transaction, it's going to go to inventory. And in this case, I've got 300 units at 760 equals 300 times 7.6. Good enough. My preference on the format, and I'll probably set up the template I give you in this format, is using the comma format, so it's a number with 0 decimal places. So if you want to enter something with a couple of decimal places, you'll have to adjust the format for the field. Or if you want to enter something with a percentage, you'll have to adjust the format. And that's just up in top center on menu bar number, and you can select from there. And I purchased. This question does not tell me if I purchased on account or if I paid with cash, so either is an acceptable answer. Okay, that's that purchase. I'm just going to copy this because it's easier than retyping all of it, because on February 19th I've got another purchase. Only this time it is 90 at 790. Okay, so that's my journal entry for that. And then I've got a cash sale on February 21st of 150 units at $8. So just be careful, that's the sale amount. That's not what's going to come out of inventory, right? I sold 150 at $8. So this is going back to, revenue recognition and how to enter standard revenue entries. I've got debit, cash, credit, sales. Right, that's my standard sales entry, and related to that, I have a debit to COGS. COGS is an acceptable abbreviation. It's very common. and I've got a credit to my inventory. And my sales were 150 at 8. And now my cost of goods sold, I have to do a calculation because in this example, I'm using FIFO. Now I could build a table here and track my inventory balance, and I'll have to when I do the weighted average. But for FIFO, I can actually just go back because I sell the oldest things. So, right, that's what FIFO is, first in, first out. So my first in units are the 100 at $7. So let's maybe just do some math over here. I've got the opening of 100. And then the other 50 units would have come out of this purchase, right? Because that's the first one that came in. So 50 of these units were also sold and they cost $760. Oh, look, there's where the date screws up on you. And I don't care for the most part on dates, and sometimes it matters, but for the most part you don't need to have them in. So the other 50 unsold are at $760. And sorry, I am going fast because you guys have the ability to pause and rerun and watch again. And I'm going to use the sum function. Didn't see that. It's hard to point out. It's on the, yeah, it's up there. So if you just hit that button, it automatically does a sum and it defaults to what cells it thinks you want. So generally, if you have a couple in a column ahead of it, that's what it grabs. So that's my cost of goods sold inventory. The more you can reference other cells rather than typing in a number, the easier it is to update, right? If I found I made a math error here and I fixed it, it would automatically update my journal entry. So that's part one, because that's all it asked was journal entries. Part two, well, first of all, it says ignore part one. Calculate the ending inventory balance for the item, assuming the Beetle Shop uses a weighted average costing assumption. So here I'm going to have to track my inventory value using weighted average assumptions so that I know what I have at the end. The way I typically like to do it, so I've got a date, I've got a number, I've got a each or per value, and dollars. And I've got that for transactions. Whoops. So here I'm going to, well, I'm not going to worry too much about format because it's an exam and I'm not that fussy about it. But what I want to do is track each transaction, and then I want to look at the balance and update the balance every time. I think that's the easiest format to track. So my opening, I've got 100, they're $7 each, and right, there's my math. If I want to, I can put each column at $7 just to make it a little clearer, and my balance is the same thing. Oops. Sorry, my mouse gets a little screwed up. Okay, and again, I want to put this column in dollars just so I can see the cents, because here I do need, right, there's a difference between $7 and $7.20 and $7.30. I've got my February 9th purchase, which we said was 300 at 760. And then if I'm looking at my balance, now it's going to be equal to what I had plus this new transaction. My dollars are going to be equal to what I had plus this new transaction. My weighted average is going to change based on the math of those two numbers. Right? So I'm tracking the number of units. I now have 400. I'm tracking the number of dollars. I now have 29.80. So my weighted average cost now is going to be equal to 29.80 divided by 400. Again, anytime you're doing math like this, I would just kind of assess did the number make sense. And it makes sense. It should be somewhere between $7 and $7.60. Same thing for Feb 19. What did I buy here? 90 at $7.90. So my balance now is going to be equal to what I had plus what I bought. The dollars I have in inventory, what I had plus what I bought. And now my average cost is $7.53. Okay, and then one last one I have is the cash sale on February 21, 150 units. So my number of units is now minus 150. What's coming out for each transaction? Well, it's whatever my weighted average is. So based on my last purchase, my weighted average is 753. So the dollars that come out of inventory are the 150 times my average cost of 753. Same thing here. My balance is equal to what I had plus what I sold, or minus what I sold. My dollars is equal to what I had minus what I sold. And my weighted average here should be the same number. Because selling doesn't, I'm taking stuff out at average cost, so everything that's left is still at average cost as well. Okay, so I mean, I would live with this as your solution, but if you wanted to highlight it or put A or something beside it, that's the answer to the question. Always make sure you're answering the question. Right? So calculate the ending inventory balance for the item. You'll notice I didn't do journal entries here because the question didn't ask for journal entries. I'm not going to take marks off if you do journal entries, but you're not going to get marks for doing it, so you're wasting your time. Okay? Same with, I could have done this whole table for the FIFO transactions to track balances in that, but I don't need to for FIFO. So again, it would have been a waste of my time. And part B, at Feb 28th, the Beetle Shop estimates they will only be able to sell the remaining inventory if they reduce the price to $7.75. Selling costs will be incurred are estimated to be 10 cents per unit. Assuming they use weighted average costing, provide any required month-end journal entry. So this is a net realizable value issue. What we're saying is the most I can get for these things is $7.75, and it's going to cost me 10 cents to sell them, so my net realizable value is $7.65. So this is part B. NRV is equal to 7.65. Whoops. Cost is equal to 7.53, right, using weighted average. What's lower? Right, because the rule is lower of cost and NRV. We're already recorded at cost. So I don't need to do an entry. Not that it asks it in this question, and not that I would expect you to do it on an exam, but if this NRV number was less than the cost, then I'd have to write the inventory down. So I'm going to have to go debit, COGS, or loss of some sort, or even shrinkage would be acceptable. And I'm going to have to credit, my inventory, to write it down to its net realizable value. Because pretty much any asset I have recorded has to be at the lower of its cost and its NRV, or what it's worth today. Okay, so that's the solution. It is posted. Hopefully that helps, and good luck.